I will start us off. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
of
of
America
America and
and
to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation,
under
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
and
justice for all.
Wow, that
Very
was,
confusing, lots of voices.
yeah, that was, I think, our best one yet. All right, we'll go to roll call. Chantel.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Commissioner Footer,
Present.
Commissioner Robin,
Yes, present.
Commissioner Soto,
Present.
Commissioner Marshall.
He's
He's
there.
coming. There he is. Vice Chair Craig will be late and Chair Gazan.
I am here. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept today's agenda?
Can I, before we do, Justin, will you be here for the entire meeting?
I don't know that I'll be here the entire meeting, but I certainly can be if I need to be.
Well, maybe I would then ask if we can move up the commission member comments, have some in the beginning then.
Okay, sure. We can do that following my welcome comments. So we'll do a 1.5.
Thank you.
Okay. A motion to accept today's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of today's agenda, say aye.
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 Okay, opposed. And I don't see it on here, but a motion to accept the minutes from the last Measure J meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion. So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from our May meeting, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Abstained? Okay, welcome everybody. I don't know if it's appropriate to bring this up right now. I just wanted to get everyone's temperature. The last printed document that I have regarding our calendar is that we were dark for July and August. And but there's been some discussion that we would still have a July meeting. So I just wanted to get everyone's temperature on that. To have a July meeting, we will be dark for August. In September, if we are on schedule to be the third Thursday, unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town for a wedding and I won't be able to attend that Zoom meeting. And then that's when also we will nominate and then vote on chair and vice chair for the next year for the commission during that September meeting. So regarding next month, I'm open to it. I know that I'm in town. I don't know. Again, it's a group consensus, so I'll let you hash it out real quick and then we can move on.
I would like to.
Yeah, fine with me.
I'll be in town.
With an administrative question, I guess, at least my term ends this month. So if we get a clarification that until we're formally off or formally renewed, I guess we would continue in our posts.
That's
I
true.
would continue in my post.
I don't know if I am reappointed either.
Oh, really?
Well,
Okay, that's
they
interesting.
haven't done the interviews yet, as far as I know.
So the interviews that I was a part of then were from last year.
Yes.
Okay, so we're that behind. All right, stay tuned. Generally, you do continue to serve as I did for like 10 months after my term ended. So,
I did the same, so
yeah, it's kind of the law of the land now, or the new way of doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned. You'll probably get interviewed maybe September, October.
Yeah.
And hopefully you both are planning to renew.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Robin, I think we came on the same year, so I think I might have the same. I might be
Mhm.
with, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, you may be in the same boat. So
Did you
Feel free-
reapply?
Yes,
what's that?
yeah. I do remember filling out application, some paperwork. It's all a blur, but yes, I did.
Chantel, maybe the city clerk would probably have that information on who is, terming out for their first term.
They do, and I actually have that information too. I just don't have it on this computer, so
Okay,
I
no
can look that up and let you know.
Okay, great. And then
Thank you.
if those commissioners wish to, you can serve a second term. We hope that you do. And then you'll just go through, express that desire to Chantel, and then the city clerk should be in touch to give you an application or whatever is necessary. And then hopefully council will be doing their interviews sometime. So generally they happen over the summer, but there's been a backlog with COVID. So, all right, so we will be meeting on July, I think the date's, I don't know the exact date, the 15th, I believe. And then we'll be off in August, and then all of you will be back together again in September, and I will rejoin you in October. And do we have an idea of when we'll be meeting back in person? Justin, we don't have volume for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Maybe I just wasn't speaking loudly enough. So just want to make the commission aware that City Council has discussed the return of in-person meetings. Part of the consideration is prior to the pandemic, we had city staff that was available to record meetings and make sure that they could be archived. Of course, once we moved to Zoom, not only did we lose that position due to pandemic related things, but Zoom really expedites the recording and archiving process. So even if we were to return to in-person, especially for meetings where we get any kind of public attendance, we would need some transition time to figure out logistically how we're going to do it. Council's really considering this broadly, and it might be that we are a little more kind of permissive, for lack of a better word, for commissions that don't have substantial public input, and stay on Zoom for those that do. And I'm not sure what the history is with Measure J, but regardless, we're kind of trying to navigate through that now that we've gotten more definitive direction, including just from Cal OSHA today, that allows staff members and things like that to remove masks if they're vaccinated. So it's not quite just as simple as the restrictions because of those other logistics and wanting to preserve transparency. I think we've also learned, both for commission members participating and for the public and staff, that Zoom has some added value while it also has some limitations. And meeting in person is generally more kind of interactive and engaging. So that's what council's grappling with right now and does not have a clear direction, but one way or the other, it will take some time to transition. So it's probably not right around the corner.
Okay,
That helps.
no problem. We'll just await your direction and stay in place with Zoom meetings for now.
So just to follow up, we're going to go ahead and add the July 15th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great. All right, and we'll go to line item 1.5 for some commissioner comments, and I will open it up.
Yes.
Commissioner Bernstein.
So I wanted to comment because 2 city council ago, they were discussing the budget and some of the Measure J expenses. And there was comments from city council, specifically from the mayor, about sort of questioning the process of Measure J and why there wasn't taking policy direction from council and better communication. And it was a little bit annoying, to be honest, because we had half our meetings canceled last year. We also had December and January were canceled, I guess because of budget reasons. We had our May joint meeting with the city council canceled last year and this year, which I'm not really sure why it was canceled this year. We had asked for our city council liaison, which previously was I guess then council member Halsted and now Mayor Halsted, and we don't have a council member liaison. And it seems to me that this is an oversight commission that it seems unfortunate to cancel meetings for an oversight commission when by I guess the body that's being overseen. So, there was obviously monies coming in and allocated, and there was emergency orders, so things were done to the budget, but we didn't have the meetings. And it seems to me that, there should be better communication. We should not have had the May joint meeting canceled. And I would request again that we have a city council liaison, because if they want to direct policy, it is important. And next year, I guess our budget is $20 million, that it's not an insignificant amount. So I just wanted to, I don't know what the solution is. I also mentioned our November meeting was tentatively canceled because it conflicted with city council, and we talked about rescheduling it. And I would just urge that our meetings are not canceled, and that we have more input and coordination with city council. So
Are you
that was my
asking me,
comments.
or, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I am here tonight in part to address those kinds of concerns and try to map out, I think, a good direction forward. So I'm happy when it comes to that point in the agenda to expound a little bit.
Okay, great. Any other comments?
I'll just supplement what Commissioner Bernstein just said. The absence or under participation by city council and engagement with city council it's a loss, and it makes it harder for us to help plan for ourselves, and it certainly makes it very, very difficult to assess expectations and goals for the city beyond, say, what the desert sun provides to me. And I don't mean that in a facetious way. I mean that in a frustrated and disappointing way.
Thank you for saying that better than I did.
I mean, I would just add, I think one thing that might be beneficial for us as a body, but also how the council communicates with us and how we communicate to the public, and it's kind of multiple phases, is having kind of these distinct markers in the budget year about what our goals are beyond just kind of general oversight. And I think before the May kind of joint meeting was a real kind of grounding, like centerpiece of the year, to be like, okay, we have to work towards this, we have to present and then get feedback and then budget's approved. But there might be other things, like we should give some update or get some update by November to know whatever else is happening for the rest of the year. Like, even if we just had like 2 or 3 concrete, clear deliverable information and from us to the council, again, multiple points. I think even that alone would be really helpful in creating some norms and expectations as to what information we get and when.
Okay, and Nancy, I don't know if, or Justin, I don't know if you were going to discuss this again. I was sent something that kind of blindsided me this past week, that we were having possibly a joint meeting with council in September. And this was sent by a former commissioner, and I never heard anything about it. So again, it's just some of these things that we don't hear, and I don't always watch the council meetings on television. And and I know that there's been some comments about even how Measure J was going to go about getting input for community projects, and that they didn't think that was the right way to do it or something. And I thought, well, if you have those opinions, then we need you to show up, because I don't feel like we've been operating outside of our boundaries or doing anything radical. So again, you can feel free when you present to us, to share any thoughts. Why don't we move on? And I don't know if it's appropriate for Justin to go next, or if we want to talk about the Measure J budget update from Nancy.
Would you mind very much if, I think Justin has another meeting. So if we let him speak, and he'll kind of, he's trying to pull, and I'll let him explain about all the committees meeting with them, so we all are on the same page. So go ahead, Justin.
Yeah.
Okay, if that pleases the chair and the commission, I'm happy to do that.
Thank
So if I were in your seats, I would feel exactly as you do. And to be honest, to some extent, although I might state things a little differently, if I were in council member seats, I might feel the way some of they do. So let me just pan out for a second and give you some of my observations coming in here pretty recently. The entire system, to be quite frank, lacks a little bit of organization and very clear direction and focus. City council, where they've been very ambitious, is both in setting an agenda and taking on numerous heavy subjects, and in creating multiple mechanisms for input. Lots of commissions, lots of committees, lots of task forces, meeting with lots of affinity groups. And from an organizational standpoint and a kind of systems approach, they are the bottleneck because they are the only throughput, right? So for all these inputs, there's one filter, and that's the city council, and they meet for 10 hours a month. And to be honest, they really can't meet a lot more than that, especially those that try to work and do that job at the same time. So we have an agenda that, we commence a closed session meeting at 3, and the earliest I've walked out of the room is 10:45. The latest is around midnight, but that's basically how we set the agenda for those meetings. And despite that, we have the back page of kind of a future meetings list. Here's our meetings for the next couple months. That's the list. You don't need to be able to read it. That's the list of items that's been on the back page since I arrived. Nothing's gone from the back to the front in 2.5 months. So frankly, we've neglected the best practices of systems and communications and how this works because it's just kind of been a little haphazard. I'm not trying to insult anybody. We've just kind of created a little bit of a monster. At the same time, and in part because of all that I just described, when we got into the budget process, we were coming out of COVID. We were glad that revenues were returning, but we were presenting a 5-year CIP for the first time. But the budget was a part of the regular agenda. Nancy and I have talked about this. The budget meetings, to have an exhaustive and thorough process, are a couple of full days on the side. It can't be a component of a 5 or 6 hour meeting and then get much attention. So I think what ended up happening is, for the very first time, we present council with a long-term outlook and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars projects. In the context of everything else we'd given them in the budget, in the context of every other policy choice and that we're presenting them with, in part because they have an ambitious agenda. And it was just overwhelming. And it caught a couple of people off guard and said, whoa, how did this train get so far from the station, right? You guys have been on the side just doing good work, planning and looking forward and trying to prioritize. Council hasn't given you any direction, in part because they're pretty bogged down with all of the stuff that they've been trying to do. So, and this is not just this commission, and it's not even unique to commissions and council. And frankly, I should say, in all my years of experience working with, I could never count how many elected officials, let alone commission members. It's a common dynamic that at some point we all feel like someone did something without us, right? The council sometimes feels like staff acts too swiftly without checking with council. Staff sometimes thinks council acts a little too ambitiously without checking in with staff. Commissions sometimes think another commission did some of the work that's really their work to do. And commissions certainly frequently feel like the council took action and didn't seek the advice or honor the advice of a commission. All of that comes from a good place. It's ownership and it's passion, right? It's a good thing. We all want to be central parts of this. So that part's normal. It's a little exacerbated by the other stuff that I'm describing, right? A lot of systems for input. We frankly set an agenda that could never be accomplished. I'm not trying to be too bold, but that's the hard truth, is we need to slow down. We need to kind of recollect, and we need to get organized. What I think is a really good system is every single year, and it kind of coincides with budgets. Where I came from, it was usually at around December. We sit down and have strategic priorities, goal setting. And we sit down with the council and say, you can't be everything to everybody. So what's really important and what is less important? I told council when I interviewed, your priorities are not the things you talk about. They're the things that take your action, attention, focus, money. But even then, the best measure that something is important is what you're willing to give up to get it done, including the other things you'd like to do, right? If I want to retire early, I can't also have a great house and big vacations and a nice home and spend freely. You have to give something up to get something. So I preach that in the interview, and that's what I'm going to try to bring to the conversation. So every year we sit down and we set priorities that are realistic to accomplish. That direction goes to commissions and says, here's what we need from you. We need your expertise and your insight and your additional time that we don't have to bring us projects that fulfill this strategic direction, whether that's a focus on facilities or infrastructure or parks or what have you. Maybe there's a mid-year check-in where we say, great, this is the track we're on. Is this right? Council says yes, or correct slightly, or we have new information. And we kind of have that back and forth continuously. We get to the budget around April or May, and now we have strategic priorities. We allocate funds accordingly. Everybody has their marching orders, and we go. Now this year, there's been a transition in my position, which doesn't make things any easier. And now we're having transitions in other key positions. So it's going to be a little messy. But what I'm going to propose to council, and we snuck it onto the agenda next Thursday, because it's so important given this conversation and others I'm having with other commissions. I'm going to suggest council, let's ask the commissions, what do you see as important priorities for the next 12 months and probably a horizon beyond that, like 3 years. You guys have already done a lot of that really good work with a long-term CIP and are already seeking other input to make sure that work is thorough and complete. Other commissions would do the same thing. We'll give that some structure. So that's not just a bunch of apples and oranges, but some consistent information across these systems of input. We'll also conduct a citizen survey and do some other things, a review of and progress of our general plan and other strategic plans that set our priority. We'll come to council sometimes later in the fall or winter and say, here's all the input from this, help everybody understand what's most important, pretty important, sort of important, and just not important right now, right? That will give us the marching orders and start things set in a different direction. And we will know better what they want from us, because this is staff too, right? Staff, I won't even ask Nancy to weigh in because I know how she feels and thinks about this. Staff hasn't always known what to bring council either. Sometimes it falls out of the sky. And council, I think, doesn't always know exactly what they want because they haven't. I mean, how do you wrap your arms around everything that a city does, right? So we're going to do that hard work. We're going to spend a couple of days. We're going to get the input back to everybody. We're also going to ask you, what about the process is working? What about the process isn't working? We're going to have a 2 full-day retreat is what I'm proposing. One that focuses on what we're doing, the strategic goals and priorities. The other on how we're doing it. Where's our communication failing? I get it with the liaisons. They can't keep up with the job without attending these commission meetings. They've scheduled them all at 5:30. I was supposed to be at the Arts Commission and the Airport Commission yesterday at 5:30. I could not be at both, right? So that's an example of something that maybe it was a good idea. Let's make these meetings accessible to the public, but maybe it caused an unintended consequence. So we need to work out some of the process things too. And out of this, we're going to get some really clear kind of roles, responsibilities. Council needs to decide what they can truly delegate. Somebody else makes the decision, and where they want advice, somebody makes a recommendation, and everything in between. And those lines, those distinctions, the subtleties that are really, really important at the end of the day, because when they don't work, we get this, just haven't been there. And we're going to reintroduce that kind of substance to this conversation and get it organized and get it going in a good direction. With your help, we can do that, but it will take a little time. And so just bear with us if you can. I'm happy to answer questions or elaborate on anything that's not good.
I think that's encouraging to hear. So, and I think, as Brian said, what Commissioner Robbins said, we could probably be more efficient and effective if we took a step back and got direction and organization. So I appreciate that.
All of us, and staff included, we all, and that's what's great, is we have such engaged people. We have such rock star staff. We have such committed citizens. Can you imagine if these systems were really refined and operating efficiently, what we could do? I mean, that's the exciting part.
So one of the things I wanted to add while Justin's still here is, he said it's okay for us to go ahead with the survey. And once we got the final survey, I'll give it to him to go through in case the council has any questions. Justin and I had talked when he first started here. In the past, I've been through different budget procedures, and what we would do is we would take 1 or 2 days and have a budget study session with the council, and that's all we do on a Friday or Saturday. So there are no interruptions, and we could get clear direction, what they want. And so when we go in June, that budget's going to be approved at the first budget meeting.
Yeah, so the survey is going to help you, I think, establish the total world of possibilities for projects, which is important to know, right? You always want to be thorough and not think a year later, oh boy, here's a bigger priority and we allocated the money. And I think it's important that council give direction, but I think it's also important that they hear from you because you have unique insight. You've been combing through these projects for a long time. And so it would be good. Now, you might not know from them yet whether they want to focus on parks or, all the other things, et cetera. But I think the input should start with you. You will have unique vantage point from these surveys, and you should say, council, this is what we think the community wants more of. And then that will be an important input for them. They'll have the input from you as well as input from the rest of the world, as well as some good objective science-based surveys. And then from that, they'll say, here's where we're aligned, here's where we see things a little differently. We'll reconcile that, and then we'll be all.
Wonderful.
All right, sounds great.
And I just want to make sure I understand that we're talking about this isn't for consideration for all Measure J funds, right? This is the totality of the recommendations we make.
I would propose, so a second ago when I said sometimes you want to delegate things, sometimes you want advice, right? My understanding is Measure J has for a while now had delegated the responsibility to allocate about $1 million in projects annually. I think that's a good practice. I think council wants some of this work to be done out of sight, out of mind. Now, some of the bigger stuff, spending, 20 million a year over 5 years, something like that, it does make sense to at least, have that back and forth. And maybe some of those lines shift. One of the ways council can get more done is by delegating more. But what you accept in that is losing some control and some influence. I have the same dilemma, right? If I want to see everything, I'm not going to get much done. If I'm comfortable trusting Nancy, trusting other staff members to do things, and I've given them enough direction so they know what I want, it works. So we should talk about that. And as we put structure to this kind of input side of things that we want you to provide to council, be open with your thoughts. If you think it would work better to have a little more authority or less,